Turn off the lights if you want to live. Those were the first words Vincent Hale ever said to me, although I did not know his name then, and I had no idea that half the city lowered its voice when he entered a room. At 11:47 on a Thursday night, he was simply a stranger leaning against the inside of my locked flower shop door, one hand pressed to his side, rain shining on his dark hair and red drops marking the white tile beneath his polished shoes. I remember the time because the clock above the register had stopped 3 minutes earlier. I remember the flower because the first drop landed on a white lily. Miller and Bloom was supposed to be closed. I had counted the register, carried the sidewalk sign inside, and turned the front placard from open to closed. The shop smelled like damp soil, eucalyptus, and the cinnamon candle my mother used to light during late shifts. Outside, rain swept across Halsted Street in silver sheets, blurring headlights and brick storefronts into something soft and unreal. Nothing about the man at my door was soft. He was tall, perhaps 6 feet 2 inches, wearing a charcoal suit that looked too expensive for our neighborhood. His face was pale, but his eyes were steady. Dark. Focused. The kind of eyes that noticed every exit before they settled on another person. I said, "Turn them off," he repeated. His voice was low. Controlled. Not a plea. Not quite a command. I should have called 911. I should have stepped back, locked myself in the office, and let the police handle whatever trouble had followed him through my door. Instead, I reached beneath the counter and switched off the display lights. The shop fell into darkness except for the amber glow above the rear exit. "Who are you?" I whispered. He looked through the rain-streaked window. 2 black sport utility vehicles rolled slowly past the shop. Their headlights washed across the roses, orchids, and glass vases lining the shelves. He waited until the vehicles disappeared around the corner. Then his knees weakened. I moved before I could think. I caught his arm and pulled it over my shoulder. He was heavier than he looked, solid beneath the soaked fabric. But he made no sound as I guided him behind the counter. "My phone is in my apron," I said. "I am calling an ambulance." His hand closed around my wrist. Firm. Careful. Even injured, he understood the difference between stopping someone and hurting them. "No hospital. You are bleeding." I noticed. That was not a joke. Neither was I. Another pair of headlights slowed outside. His grip loosened. "If they find me here, they will not believe you are innocent." That sentence should have sent me running. Instead, it made me look toward the rear of the shop. My mother had built a small refrigerated room for wedding arrangements and delicate flowers. It was 8 feet wide, 10 feet deep, and cold enough to keep hydrangeas alive through a Chicago heat wave. "Can you walk?" I asked. "Yes." He could not. Not properly. Pride carried him through the first few steps, and I carried much of the rest. I helped him into the cooler, and lowered him onto a sturdy wooden crate beside buckets of lilies. The chilled air fogged between us. His breathing had become shallow. "Stay awake," I told him. "I do not take orders. Tonight you do." Something almost changed in his expression. Not a smile. More like surprise that I had spoken to him that way. I pulled a folded canvas cover across the front of the crate, and arranged 2 tall buckets between him and the door. "Do not move!" The bell above the front entrance rang. I had forgotten to relock it after he came inside. 3 men entered, bringing the smell of rain and cold pavement with them. I stepped out of the cooler and closed the door. My hands were shaking, so I picked up a pair of pruning shears and pretended I had been trimming stems. "We are closed," I said. The man in front wore a navy overcoat and leather gloves. He smiled without warmth. "We need flowers. Come back at 9. His gaze traveled around the darkened shop. "They are for a funeral. Most people plan those during business hours." One of the other men moved toward the rear hallway. I stepped into his path. He looked down at me, then at the shears in my hand. I was 5 feet 5 inches tall, wearing old sneakers and a green apron covered in rose leaves. I did not look brave. I did not feel brave. But behind the cooler door was a man who needed help, and kindness had always made me more stubborn than fear. "Employees only," I said. The man in the overcoat studied me. A faint dark stain showed at the edge of his right cuff. I did not let myself wonder what it was. "Did anyone come in here?" he asked. Rain tapped against the windows. The refrigerator motor hummed behind me. Somewhere inside that cold room, the stranger was trying not to make a sound. "A delivery driver," I said. "Around 8. He had the wrong address." "No one else?" "You are the first customers I have had all night." It was a poor lie. The register report sat beside a stack of receipts. The man never looked at it. He looked at me. For one long second, I thought he could hear my heartbeat. Then he placed a $50 bill on the counter. "White roses," he said. "A dozen." I wrapped them with hands that barely obeyed me. He took the bouquet but left the money. At the door, he paused. "Lock up, Miss Miller. This is not a safe night to be alone." The bell rang again. The three men disappeared into the rain. I locked the door, lowered the blinds, and stood there until their vehicle turned the corner. Then I ran to the cooler. The stranger was still conscious, but barely. I opened the emergency kit beneath the worktable. Years earlier, before my mother became ill, I had trained as an emergency medical technician. My certification had expired. The knowledge had not. The injury looked frightening because it had bled heavily, but it did not appear deep enough to require the kind of intervention I could not provide. I cleaned the area without examining it more than necessary, pressed fresh gauze into place, and secured a bandage around his middle. "This is temporary," I told him. "You still need a doctor." "I have one." "Then call that doctor when the street is clear." He watched me while I worked. "You lied to them. You needed help. You do not know what I need. Then tell me." His eyes closed for a moment. "You should be afraid of me." "I am." That made him look at me again. "Then why help?" My hand stopped over the bandage. I thought of my mother, who used to leave free bouquets outside the shop for anyone having a terrible day. I thought of every funeral arrangement I had made for someone who received flowers only after it was too late to feel loved. "Because dying men do not have to earn kindness first," I said. For the first time, control left his face. Something quieter appeared beneath it. Something tired. Almost human. His fingers found my wrist again, weaker now. "Grace." I froze. "How do you know my name?" He looked toward the framed business license beside the register. Even half-conscious, he noticed everything. "Listen to me, Grace Miller." His voice had become a whisper. "Those men will come back." They believed me. "No." His eyes closed as the cooler hummed around us. "They saw your face." For the next 20 minutes, I argued with a man who could barely keep his eyes open. I told him the men had left. He told me they had probably moved to a place where they could watch the block. I told him my shop had locks, cameras, and a police station 6 blocks away. He looked at me with the exhausted patience of someone listening to a child explain why monsters could not enter a room with the lights on. "You need to leave before sunrise," he said. "And go where?" "Somewhere no one connects to you." "That is not an answer. It is the only one I can give you." I checked the bandage again and made him drink half a bottle of water. His hands were cold, but his pulse felt steadier. He refused food, refused an ambulance, and refused to explain why 3 men had searched my shop while pretending to buy funeral roses. Every question met the same wall. Silence. Control. A stare that made me feel as though he were measuring the distance between my fear and my common sense. "At least tell me your last name," I said. "No, then tell me who those men were." "No, do you have a favorite word other than no?" His mouth shifted almost imperceptibly. "Leave." "That is not better." The refrigerator motor clicked off, and the sudden quiet made the storm outside sound louder. Rain drummed against the rear windows. Pipes groaned in the walls. Somewhere near the front of the shop, the broken clock. Tried to move and failed. I pulled a wool delivery blanket from a shelf and placed it over him. You need rest. You need to listen. You are sitting in my flower cooler, wearing my emergency blanket, after I lied to 3 dangerous strangers for you. I think I have listened enough for one night. He watched me for a long moment. Then he looked at the cedar shelves beside him. Your mother chose those. The words stopped me. How did you know? The wood is older than everything else in the room. Someone kept it for a reason. I glanced at the worn racks my mother had built with my father before he left us. Their corners were smooth from years of metal buckets sliding across them. You see too much, I said. It keeps me alive. It does not seem to be working especially well tonight. This time, he almost smiled. It disappeared before I could decide whether I had imagined it. I sat on an overturned bucket across from him and listened to the rain. My body felt heavy now that the immediate danger had passed. It was the kind of exhaustion that settles into the bones after fear has borrowed all your strength. Why did they want you? I asked quietly. His gaze returned to the door. Someone made a mistake. You. Someone else. And I am part of that mistake now? His silence answered me. I folded my arms against the cold. You do not get to walk into my life, bring danger with you, and decide what I am allowed to know. You are right. The answer came so quickly that it surprised me. But knowing more would not make you safer. Maybe I should decide that. His eyes met mine. For the first time, there was no command in them. Only something close to regret. You should have had that choice before I entered your shop. He finally removed a small phone from an inner pocket and powered it on. He typed a short message, waited for confirmation, and turned the device off again. Someone is coming for me, he said. A doctor? Someone who will take me to one. How long? Less than an hour. At 4:50 in the morning, a dark sedan stopped in the alley without headlights. A broad-shouldered man with gray at his temples entered through the rear service door after the stranger gave me a code to confirm his identity. The newcomer introduced himself only as Eli. He checked the bandage, thanked me with a seriousness that made me more uneasy than gratitude should have, and helped the stranger stand. The injured man moved carefully. Every step cost him effort, although he refused to show it. At the rear door, he looked back at me. Lock this behind us. You still have not told me your name. That is safer for you. You keep saying that as though safety is something you can hand out. He paused, but Eli urged him toward the waiting car. 5 minutes later, I found a single white camellia on the counter, tied with a dark silk handkerchief embroidered with the letters V and H. Beneath it lay a note written in precise black ink. Lock your doors. Do not answer questions about me. Do not accept deliveries you did not order. I read it 3 times. Then I tore it in half. 5 minutes after that, I taped it back together. I spent Friday telling myself that the night had been a strange accident, one of those stories people survive and later repeat at dinner parties when everyone wants proof that ordinary lives can briefly become extraordinary. I scrubbed the tile where he had fallen. I threw away the ruined lilies, although one white petal remained beneath the counter until noon. Every time the bell rang, my heart jumped. Every dark vehicle made me look up. No one asked about him. No one followed me home. By Saturday afternoon, embarrassment had begun replacing fear. Maybe he had exaggerated everything. Maybe the men had been searching for someone else. Maybe Vincent, if that was even his name, was simply a wealthy criminal with an inflated sense of importance. Then, at 2:17, Halstead Street went quiet. The first black sport utility vehicle stopped across from the shop. A second pulled in behind it. A third remained near the alley. Men in dark suits stepped onto the sidewalk without rushing or speaking. Customers near my front display suddenly remembered other places they needed to be. Mrs. Alvarez from the bakery next door lowered her blinds. A police cruiser approaching the intersection slowed, turned onto the next street, and continued without stopping. Then the rear door of the center vehicle opened. The stranger stepped out. He wore a charcoal overcoat over a black suit. There was no longer any danger of him collapsing, but his movements remained careful, and one hand briefly guarded his side when he climbed the curb. People moved aside before he reached them. He entered alone. The bell above the door gave one small, cheerful ring that did not belong in the silence surrounding him. I stood behind the counter holding a bundle of lavender. "You look better," I said. "I have looked better. That is more believable." His eyes moved over the front lock, the ceiling camera, the rear hallway, and finally me. "You stayed. This is my shop. You should have left. You should have said thank you." Something softened in his expression, then vanished. He placed a cream-colored envelope on the counter. Inside was enough money to cover my rent for a year. I closed it and pushed it back. "No, your rear lock can be opened in less than a minute. You entered because I opened the door. Your camera has a blind spot beside the alley. You came here to criticize my security? I came here to correct a debt. I did not lend you money." Two men outside turned their heads as though they could hear every word. He did not look away from me. "My name is Vincent Hale." The room seemed to contract around those words. Everyone in Chicago knew the name, even if most people pretended otherwise. Business magazines described him as a private investor and real estate developer. Local rumors called him something else. The Quiet King. The man who controlled buildings through layers of companies. The man city officials greeted behind closed doors. The man people discussed only after checking who might be listening. I set the lavender down carefully. "You are him." "I am." "And the men on Thursday night?" "They wanted information." "Did you give them any?" "No." "Did you give me any?" "No." "Then why are there 3 vehicles outside my shop?" His jaw tightened. "Because they saw your face, and frightened men do not require proof before they act." He told me he could move me somewhere secure. He could reinforce the locks, correct the camera angle, and place protection outside until the danger passed. I refused every offer. "I helped a wounded stranger," I said. "I did not sign a contract with a mafia boss. This is not a negotiation." "Then you came to the wrong flower shop." For the first time, the men outside appeared nervous for him. Vincent studied me, and I expected anger. Instead, I saw something more unsettling. Respect. "Truth has never stopped frightened men, Grace." Before I could answer, the delivery bell sounded at the rear entrance. Megan had called in sick that morning, and I was not expecting anyone. Vincent went still. One of his men entered from the alley carrying a large funeral wreath wrapped in clear plastic. White roses. Black ribbon. A card pinned at the center. He placed it on the counter without speaking. My name was written across the envelope. My fingers turned cold as I opened it. Inside were 6 words. "Thank you for hiding our mistake." The card trembled between my fingers. Vincent took it from me without asking. His eyes moved across the words once. Then again. Nothing changed in his face, but every man near the door straightened as though a silent alarm had sounded. "Close the shop," he said. "No." His gaze lifted to mine. "Grace. Do not use my name like that." "Like what?" "Like it belongs inside an order." The wreath sat between us, white roses arranged in a perfect circle around black ribbon. Funeral flowers. My funeral flowers. Their scent turned my stomach. Vincent folded the card and placed it in his coat. "You are coming with me. I have orders to finish." "Cancel them. People are expecting flowers for birthdays, an anniversary, and one very nervous apology. They will survive without them." "That is easy for you to say. You do not know any of them." "I know someone sent you a funeral wreath after watching this building. I know the courier used your rear entrance. I know whoever arranged this wants you frightened enough to make mistakes. And your solution is to remove me from my own life? My solution is to keep you alive. Those are not the same thing." The shop went silent except for the low hum of the cooler. One of Vincent's men stepped forward. He was the same broad-shouldered man who had collected Vincent before dawn. "Miss Miller, my name is Eli Turner. We can reinforce the premises, but not while customers and delivery drivers are moving through the building. Then do it after closing." Eli glanced at Vincent. "That will not be enough today." The truth in his answer landed harder than I wanted it to. I looked past them at Halsted Street. The bakery blinds remained lowered. 2 men stood near the curb, watching every passing car. My neighborhood no longer looked like mine. Fear had changed its shape. "I am not going anywhere until I call Megan," I said. Vincent nodded once. "Use my phone. I have my own. Your number may have been copied from the shop records. You do not know that." "No. I do not." The admission surprised me. "But I will not ignore the possibility." I used his phone. Megan answered on the 4th ring, sounding congested and annoyed. I told her a plumbing problem had forced me to close for several days. She believed me because the pipes above the back office had leaked twice that winter. I hated how easily the lie came. When the call ended, Vincent reached for the phone, but I held it away. "One more call." "To whom?" "My landlord. Eli can handle him." "I will handle him." Vincent held my gaze, then nodded. It was not permission. I refused to think of it that way. 15 minutes later, I locked the register, covered the most delicate flowers, and placed a notice on the front door. "Closed for repairs." I stood beneath the gold lettering of Miller, and bloomed longer than necessary. My mother had painted that sign herself. She used to say a shop should feel like a promise. Mine felt abandoned. "This is temporary," Vincent said behind me. "You cannot know that." "No," he said. "But I will do everything I can to make it true." The house near Lincoln Park was not an empty safe house. It was a private guest house maintained through one of Vincent's legitimate companies, with a housekeeper who had been sent home and rooms prepared for executives who needed privacy. Pale limestone walls stood behind an iron gate. Tall windows faced a narrow winter garden. Inside, everything was clean, expensive, and impersonal. No family photographs. No books left open. No coat hanging carelessly over a chair. It looked designed for people who never planned to stay long enough to become known. Eli showed me the kitchen, a guest room, and a small office with a secure phone. 2 men remained downstairs. Another watched the gate. "How long?" I asked. Vincent removed his overcoat carefully. The movement pulled at his bandage, and a brief line of pain crossed his face. "Until I identify who sent the wreath." "A day?" "Possibly." "A week?" "Possibly." "A month?" He did not answer. I placed my purse on the marble counter. "I want my phone." "Not until Eli checks it. I want to speak with Megan without someone listening. As soon as we confirm the line is safe. I want to return to the shop tomorrow." "That is unlikely." The words came too naturally, as though the world had always adjusted itself when he spoke. I felt something inside me harden. "You said this was protection." "It is. It feels like confinement. The risk does not disappear because you dislike the precautions." "No, but trust disappears when you make every decision for me." That stopped him. Eli quietly left the kitchen. Without the men, the vehicles, and the overcoat, Vincent looked closer to the stranger from the cooler. Tired around the eyes. Too controlled everywhere else. "I am trying to keep you safe," he said. "You are trying to make me manageable." The clock above the stove counted several seconds between us. "You protect buildings with locks," I continued. "You protect information by hiding it. You protect power by controlling the people around it. I am not a building. I am not a secret. And I am not part of your organization. You are connected to me now. Because I showed you kindness? Because my enemies believe you matter. Do I?" The question escaped before I could stop it. Something shifted in his eyes. For one unguarded second, I saw the man who had held my wrist in the cooler while fighting to remain conscious. Then the wall returned. "Enough to be in danger," he said. It was not the answer I had expected. Perhaps it was the only one he knew how to give. Then learn the difference between protecting me and owning my choices. Vincent looked at me for a long time. Finally, he placed my inspected phone on the counter. Your line is clear for now, he said. You may call Megan privately. It was not freedom. It was not surrender. But it was the first time he changed a decision because I had challenged it. I reached for the phone. Behind him, on a narrow table near the dining room, stood a black ceramic vase filled with dark burgundy dahlias. One bloom had been tied with a thin silver thread. The same unusual thread used around the funeral wreath. Vincent, I said. He turned. I pointed at the arrangement. Who brought those flowers? His face went still. Caleb Mercer. My oldest advisor. I moved closer without touching the petals. When? Yesterday afternoon. Then either he knows this house is being used, or someone expected me to be brought here. Vincent stood several feet from the vase, staring at the silver thread as if it were a sentence written in a language he had spent his life pretending not to understand. Eli, he called. The name barely left his mouth before Eli returned. Vincent pointed toward the arrangement. Who authorized Caleb's visit? I did. He said he was leaving documents for the weekend meeting. Did anyone inspect the flowers? They came from a shop we have used before. Eli's eyes moved to the thread. That should have been enough. It was not. Do not remove them yet, I said. Both men looked at me. I examined the arrangement from a distance. 6 dark dahlias. 3 stems of rosemary. Silver thread around the center bloom. Florists notice construction, I said. Not only the flowers. The way stems are stripped. The direction of a ribbon knot. The type of wire hidden beneath the wrapping. Whoever built this arrangement also built the wreath. Can you prove that? Eli asked. The knot is reversed and tightened twice. Most florists finish it once. The rosemary has been cut at the same angle. The silver thread is decorative sewing cord, not floral material. It is a signature, whether the person intended it to be or not. Vincent looked at the flowers. Again. Caleb knows nothing about arranging flowers. He does not need to. He only needs access to the person who does. Eli began preparing to move us to a second location, but I asked to see photographs of other arrangements Caleb's office had approved. We worked from the secure office while 2 men checked the street, and another vehicle waited in the rear courtyard. Eli opened event photographs, delivery invoices, and internal property schedules. The first suspicious arrangement had been delivered 7 months earlier. 4 white orchids tied with blue ribbon had arrived at a restaurant near the river. That evening, an unauthorized visitor entered through loading entrance 4. The second photograph showed 3 red carnations with gold cord at a downtown warehouse. The following day, someone redirected a shipment through gate 3. The third showed 6 dahlias at an office building where a private meeting on the 6th floor had been compromised. The flower meanings may be camouflage, I said. The construction is what matters. Counts, colors, and repeated materials. Eli opened an internal operations chart. Their properties were divided into color-coded zones for maintenance crews. Blue marked river locations. Gold marked the central business district. Silver marked the north side. Caleb designed this dispatch system, Eli said. The ribbon identifies the zone. The number of dominant stems identifies the entrance, floor, or scheduled hour, I said. Rosemary may tell the recipient to reuse a previous location. The dark dahlia may mark an internal target, but that part still needs verification. I was not solving a secret language from flower symbolism. I was finding repetition. Eli supplied the information that turned repetition into evidence. The delivery invoices came from different stores under different customer names, but payment approvals led back to accounts controlled by Caleb's office. Vincent stared at the records. His resistance did not disappear. It collapsed quietly, like a locked door opening into an empty room. He has worked beside me for 19 years, he said. Time does not prove loyalty, I replied. Loyalty is what someone does when your back is turned. He looked at me, and I wished I had spoken more gently. There was no anger in his expression, only loss. Eli closed the laptop. We need to leave. Before anyone moved, my phone rang. Megan's name appeared on the screen. Vincent looked at me but did not reach for it. That small restraint mattered. I answered. Megan? At first, there was only breathing. Then her voice came through, thin and unsteady. Grace, I received a message from your number. It said the pipe had burst, and you needed me at the shop. My body turned cold. Where are you now? Inside Miller and Bloom. A man is here. A calm male voice spoke in the background. Tell Miss Miller to come alone. Vincent's face became unreadable. Caleb, he said. The familiar voice answered through the speaker. Warm. Educated. The kind of voice people trusted in boardrooms and at charity dinners. Vincent. I had hoped she would be less observant. Let Megan leave. Bring Grace to the shop at midnight. No guards in sight. No police. You know I will not agree. Then her friend remains my guest while ordinary people learn the cost of standing too close to powerful men. The call ended. I am going, I said. No, Vincent answered. He has Megan. That is why you cannot walk into the shop without a plan. I had expected an order. Instead, he said the word plan. I looked at him carefully. You are willing to include me? I am willing to listen before I decide. That is not the same thing. His jaw tightened. Then he forced the next sentence out as though it belonged to a language he had never spoken. What do you need? I told him Caleb wanted me because I had recognized the floral system. That made my knowledge valuable. Valuable people were kept alive long enough to be useful. Vincent hated the logic, but he could not deny it. I proposed entering the shop alone while his people watched from beyond Caleb's likely surveillance range. The shop cameras could be monitored remotely. If Caleb moved me, I would leave a floral message in clear view of the rear camera. Eli would prepare several arrangements in advance so I could communicate a location without writing anything. Vincent listened. He objected. I answered. Eli identified weaknesses. We corrected them. For the first time since he entered my life, protection became a conversation instead of a command. If the situation changes, you leave, Vincent said. If I can leave without abandoning Megan. Grace. Those are my terms. He looked as though every instinct in him wanted to refuse. Then he nodded. Your terms. At 11:30, Eli's vehicle stopped 2 blocks from Miller and Bloom. I walked the remaining distance alone. The street looked empty, but I knew Vincent's people were watching from positions Caleb would not easily identify. My phone remained in the car because Caleb might trace it. A small transmitter had been sewn into the lining of my coat, but no one pretended it guaranteed safety. The shop was dark. No movement behind the glass. No shadow near the register. I found the front door unlocked. The bell gave a weak chime when I entered. Megan? My voice disappeared between the rows of flowers. The funeral wreath remained on the counter, but the card was gone. In its place lay Megan's red knit scarf and a white envelope. Inside was an address on the southwest side and one sentence. Bring your knowledge, or your friend does not go home. A disposable phone beside the envelope began to ring. Caleb spoke when I answered. You came alone. Good. Let me hear Megan. A quiet rustle followed. Then her voice. Grace, I am all right. Do not come here. Caleb took the phone back. She has always been loyal to you. Loyalty deserves recognition. What do you want? You noticed my system. Vincent would have remained blind without you. He trusted you. Trust is control wearing a kinder face. Where are you? The address is correct. You have 20 minutes. The call ended. I recognized the address. It belonged to an abandoned commercial greenhouse near old railroad property on the southwest side. My mother had purchased wholesale orchids there when I was a teenager, and I had spent 2 summers helping her collect orders. I remembered the delivery entrances, the service aisles, and the manual irrigation controls. I walked into my cooler and selected 6 white lilies, 3 stems of rosemary, and 1 dark dahlia. During our planning, Eli and I had assigned simple meanings that depended on the property map, not romantic symbolism. 6 meant service entrance 6. 3 meant greenhouse wing 3. Rosemary meant a previously known location. The dahlia meant Caleb. I placed the bouquet beneath the rear camera and turned 1 lily upside down. Reversed flower. Reversed the obvious approach. Then I left through the front door and entered the cab Caleb had ordered. The greenhouse appeared behind a rusted fence, its glass roof glowing faintly beneath the city sky. I entered through the main door because Caleb expected me to. The air inside smelled like damp concrete and old leaves. Rows of empty planting tables stretched into the darkness. Small work lights marked a path toward the central building. Megan sat in a wooden chair beside a long steel table. Her hands were not tied, but a man stood near the only visible exit. She looked pale when she saw me. "I told you not to come. You would have come for me." Caleb stepped from behind a support column wearing a navy overcoat and the calm expression of a man arriving for a business meeting. He was older than Vincent, with silver at his temples and careful eyes that never stopped calculating. "Miss Miller," he said, "you have complicated 19 years of work in less than 3 days. You made the mistake of using flowers in front of a florist. I made the mistake of assuming Vincent surrounded himself with people who saw only what he permitted them to see." He gestured toward the steel table. Buckets of flowers stood beside ribbon paper and cards from different shops across Chicago. "You are going to prepare an arrangement." "For whom?" "Vincent." Caleb selected 5 red carnations, 2 white orchids, and blue ribbon. "This will direct him to a warehouse near the river. My people will keep him occupied while I conclude my business elsewhere." "And Megan?" "She leaves when the bouquet is finished." Megan gave the smallest shake of her head. Caleb noticed. "Do not turn courage into carelessness," he said. "I require cooperation. Nothing more." I began arranging the flowers. My hands moved automatically, trimming stems, removing leaves, and balancing color. Caleb watched every choice. I used the 5 carnations he gave me, but placed one deeper than the others so only 4 could be seen from the front. 4 did not identify the river warehouse. It identified the 4th access point on the greenhouse property plan Eli had reviewed. I added the orchids, then bent 1 stem beneath the wrapping without breaking it. During our planning, a bent stem had been assigned 1 meaning. The visible message was false. I tied the blue ribbon and tucked 1 small piece of rosemary behind the card. Return to the earlier location. Trust the bouquet left at the shop. Caleb examined the arrangement. "Elegant. It is what you asked for." He nodded toward the man beside Megan. A side door opened, and I carried the arrangement to a courier waiting beside a black sedan. On the way back, I counted the overhead pipes. The irrigation system was old, but the red manual release remained behind the 3rd row of empty soil bins. When I returned, Caleb was speaking quietly into his phone. "The delivery is moving," he said. "Vincent will follow it." "You sound certain." "He always follows threats." "Maybe he learned to listen." Caleb's eyes narrowed. "From you?" "Perhaps." Several minutes passed. Then the work lights went out. Darkness dropped across the greenhouse. Megan called my name. The outage was the signal. Vincent had understood both bouquets. I moved toward Megan's voice, found the red irrigation handle, and pulled it down. Water rushed through the overhead lines, filling the air with mist and noise. Emergency lamps flickered along the floor. The irrigation did not stop anyone, but it broke clear lines of sight and gave us cover to move. I found Megan's hand and led her behind a planting table. "Stay close." We followed the service aisle toward the rear exit. A shadow crossed the next corridor. I stopped. Eli appeared through the mist, and raised one finger to his lips. Relief nearly weakened my knees. He guided Megan toward two waiting agents near the side entrance, then pointed toward the central building. Vincent had gone ahead. Through the wet glass, I saw Vincent standing beneath the iron framework. Caleb faced him from the opposite side of the room. No shouting. No chaos. Only two men who had known each other for 19 years and no longer recognized what stood between them. Vincent's eyes found mine. For 1 second, the entire greenhouse disappeared. Then I saw Caleb's reflection in the glass behind him. His hand was moving inside his coat. "Vincent," I called. Vincent turned as Caleb removed a phone. Caleb held it where everyone could see. "Make the wrong choice," he said, "and she will finally understand what you are." Vincent did not move toward him. Water continued to fall from the irrigation lines, turning the glass walls into silver mirrors. "Put the phone on the table," Vincent said. Caleb smiled. "There he is. The man she has not seen yet. You do not know what she has seen. She saw you wounded, dependent, grateful. That is not who you are." Vincent's voice remained quiet. "You stopped knowing who I was a long time ago." Caleb placed the phone on the steel table but kept one finger near the screen. "Every account, every name, every private agreement that built your influence is stored outside your control. I scheduled the files for release. One confirmation, and they go to reporters, investigators, and every rival waiting for you to fall." Eli moved closer. Vincent raised one hand, stopping him. "Release them." Caleb's smile disappeared. "You do not mean that." "I do. You will lose companies, contracts, allies, perhaps your freedom." Vincent glanced toward me. "Then those are the consequences." The words settled into the greenhouse more heavily than any threat could have. "You think she will stay after the city learns what you built?" Caleb asked. "That choice belongs to her." Vincent looked back at him. "You cannot control me with a truth I have decided to face." Caleb pressed the confirmation. The phone displayed a brief progress message. Vincent did not reach for it. He did not tell Eli to stop the transmission. He allowed the evidence to leave Caleb's hands because accepting the truth was the only way to remove its power. "Copies of your records were already delivered to a federal prosecutor through counsel," Vincent said. "Your release does not destroy me alone. It confirms the case against you." For the first time, Caleb's calm broke. "Only slightly." "Enough. Do not pretend she changed you in 3 days," he said. "She did not change me," Vincent replied. "She reminded me that change was still possible." Caleb looked at me with quiet contempt. "You think kindness protects anyone in this world?" "No," I said. "Kindness does not stop danger. It stops danger from deciding who we become." He laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "That sounds beautiful in a flower shop." It sounded true in a cold room when he had no power at all. Vincent's eyes held mine. Then he turned back to Caleb. "You are finished." Caleb lifted his chin. "Then do it. Show her what mercy means in your world." The greenhouse became still. I understood what he wanted. He wanted Vincent to answer betrayal with cruelty. He wanted to prove that power always returned to the same language when challenged. Vincent stepped toward him. For years, I believed mercy made a man weak. Caleb's expression sharpened. "It does." "No. Mercy requires control. Rage does not." Vincent looked at Eli. "Turn him over to the investigators." Caleb's face lost its color. "You would hand me to them?" "I am giving you what you denied everyone else." "And what is that?" "A process." Eli escorted Caleb toward the side entrance, where federal agents were waiting after receiving the location from Vincent's attorney. Caleb stopped once and looked back. "You cannot build a kingdom with clean hands, Vincent." Vincent answered without raising his voice. "Then I will stop building kingdoms." When the door closed, silence returned. Real silence. Not the kind created by fear. Megan reached me first and wrapped both arms around my shoulders. I held her until her breathing slowed. "I am sorry," I whispered. "You are impossible," she said. "You voluntarily walked into an abandoned greenhouse. There was a plan. It was a terrible plan. It worked. That does not make it good. Eli arranged for an agent to take her home. She refused to leave until I promised I would call before sunrise. Then Vincent and I stood beneath the wet glass roof several feet apart. The distance felt intentional, as though space was another choice he had learned to respect. "You saw Caleb reach into his coat," he said. "I saw his reflection. You warned me again." "I did. You should never have needed to. Neither should you." He nodded, accepting the correction. "You understood the bouquet," I said. "Not immediately." "How long?" 8 minutes. That is poor work for a man who notices everything. I was distracted by the fact that you had volunteered to enter a building controlled by Caleb. You agreed to the plan. I did not enjoy agreeing. That is not the same as respecting it." A faint smile appeared. This time, I knew I had not imagined it. "The inverted lily changed the approach," he said. "Entrance 6. Wing 3. Do not use the front." "And the bent orchid?" "The visible destination was false." "You learned." I listened. The difference mattered. We left the greenhouse as dawn began to lighten the eastern sky. Vincent did not choose my vehicle for me, he asked. I rode with Eli because his car smelled less expensive. Vincent joined us but sat on the opposite side, leaving space between us. Chicago woke slowly outside the windows. Coffee shops turned on their signs. Delivery trucks filled the alleys. The elevated train thundered above an intersection. Ordinary life returned as though nothing had happened. At Miller and Bloom, the funeral wreath had been removed and preserved as evidence. Vincent stood outside beneath the gold lettering my mother had painted. "The locks and camera will be upgraded today," he said. "With my approval." "Yes." "No guards inside the shop." "Agreed." "Megan decides whether she accepts protection." "Agreed." "You do not buy the building." He looked almost offended. "I had not mentioned buying it." "You considered it." "Briefly." "No, agreed." I opened the shop door. Morning light spread across the tile where the first drop of blood had landed 2 nights earlier. Vincent remained outside. He did not follow until I looked back and said, "You may come in." The months that followed were not clean or simple. Truth rarely is. Caleb's files exposed companies, officials, private agreements, and financial arrangements that had shaped parts of Chicago for years. Vincent cooperated through attorneys and accepted that cooperation did not erase responsibility. Several of his companies were placed under independent management. Others closed. Investigators reviewed his records. Former allies stopped answering his calls. Reporters gathered outside buildings that once opened their doors before he arrived. He transferred legitimate properties into audited businesses and established a neighborhood fund managed by an independent board, not by him. It supported housing repairs, storefront restoration, and grants for small businesses that had spent years paying hidden costs to survive. People called it strategy. I knew it was something less polished and more difficult. Accountability. Penance with paperwork. He did not ask me to defend him. He did not send extravagant gifts. He did not turn distance into punishment. For 63 days, I did not see him. Eli called twice to confirm that no new threat had appeared. Vincent called once. He asked whether I was safe, listened to the answer, and ended the conversation without telling me what to do. On the 64th morning, the bell above my door rang at 9:12. Vincent entered wearing a simple black coat. No dark vehicles crowded the curb. One plain sedan remained across the street at a respectful distance, but no one followed him inside. He carried nothing in his hands. "We are open," I said. "I noticed." "What do you need?" He looked around the shop at the lilies, roses, and green stems catching the morning light. "Flowers." "For whom?" For the woman who taught me that protection is not possession. I reached for the white camellias. His eyes followed my hands as I wrapped them in brown paper and tied them with soft gray ribbon. What do they mean? He asked. Admiration. Only admiration? Respect. That sounds safer. It is. I handed him the bouquet. He accepted it carefully. Are these for me to give to you? That depends. On what? Whether you understand that I can accept flowers without owing the person who brings them. Vincent looked down at the camellias. Then back at me. I understand. And that standing beside someone is not the same as standing over them. I understand that too. Good. I stepped from behind the counter and opened the door. For 1 second, disappointment crossed his face. Then I picked up my coat. There is a coffee shop 3 blocks away, I said. A public place. No security detail at the table. His expression softened. Your terms? My terms. He held the door while I walked outside. The first time Vincent Hale entered my shop, he ordered me to turn off the lights. The next time he returned, he stood in the morning sun and waited for me to choose whether he could stay. People still lowered their voices when he entered a room. The city still remembered the man he had been. So did I. Memory is not a prison unless we refuse to build a door. He never ruled my silence. He learned to listen to it. And that was how I knew I had not only helped save his life. I had helped him choose what to do with it.